We are going to be talking about the recent arrest of Portland, Oregon's Billy Jack Haynes, a person that I met briefly through a friend in 1998. Okay, so he wrestled in Portland, Oregon for many years, and he wrestled also in WrestleMania. And he's become somewhat of a star on the internet in recent years with YouTube. Before conspiracy theories about the WE became cool, and before Billy Jack said some of the things that he said about Vince and the theories that he had about the company itself based on his experiences, I had aired some speculations about that corporation, and I've gone in certain directions that other people have gone in with also my own flair and flavor. I'm nonpartisan, so I see the WE Corporation as both something that was very entertaining in the day of Billy Jack in the 80s and 90s, and pretty much, devolved into a psychopathic propaganda machine, with Vince enjoying close friendships with former presidents. It's kind of interesting to see the former president on the WE in like a fake fight. Again, fake fight. Again, anybody here, fake fight now, fake fight. Anybody here, fake fight with Vince. And then we see a fake fight maybe today with Biden. So I want people that are wrestling fans that are watching this, as well as people that are regular viewers of mine, to understand things that you normally don't understand, because you're going to get an outside the box perspective when you watch this channel. So let me start here, and then we'll talk about Billy. But yes, let me just give you an overview. So I've made maybe 4 or 5 videos on my perceptions of the WE conspiracy, basically seen it as some sort of a crime family syndicate, which others have speculated as well, with the many wrestling deaths, and calling out the propaganda role the WE has played, formerly known as the WWF, in shaping people's minds and preparing them for war, preparing them for 9/11, preparing them to join the military with Hulk Hogan style, Hulk Hogan propaganda here. And we also see, because I'm a fan of the old stuff, the SummerSlam era, Ultimate Warrior, Ravishing Rick Rude, behind-the-scenes stories of the Von Erich family, but I don't see any of these, being that, if you watch my other videos, you see that I encourage men to be real tough guys, not sportsmen, not UFC, bloodbath, violent addicts, but to stand up against the system. So, first of all, I want to recognize Billy Jack for being one of the wrestlers, not the only one, but one of the main wrestlers. Kind of ironic that I actually had a steak dinner with him through a friend at Sizzler on 82nd in Portland, Oregon in the late 90s. But he has basically called out aspects of the WE in a way that a lot of wrestlers that are still popular, a lot of Hulk Hogan types, in a way that a lot of them have not. So there's a couple things that I'm going to, do here, and it's to encourage you to think outside the box of what you've already thought. First of all, a lot of you are aware of Antifa in Portland, Oregon, and the violence and property destruction that they've caused. And I'm nonpartisan. I'm not a Trumper. Billy was. The point is that Portland is somewhat of a fighting town. Doesn't mean they're always the toughest, like, what we're dealing with recently, but there is this angry type of, unrest energy that today manifests in a certain way, but back in the day, before cell phones and social media and what's going on now, Portland wrestling was a big deal. So before Antifa and the left and the right fighting in Portland, Portland wrestling was an area in which there was a focus of energy. And through the friend that I knew who worked at nightclubs, bounced at clubs, was involved in aspects of quote unquote what's called the, underline here, same thing that Billy Jack said that he had dealings with, quote, the underworld. Okay, make of it what you will. We see movies out there that depict other people's lifestyles. There's Goodfellas, there's Casino, then there's what Portland, Oregon was, and then what it was before the era of even my friend, going back to the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s. And so there's several books that have been written about that. So most of you know nothing about Portland beyond Antifa, the controlled left, Portlandia, the horrible TV show that misrepresents Portland also. So most of you don't know anything about old Portland, but there are books that you can get on Amazon. But there isn't anything on Portland wrestling that is a quality documentary or book, nor do I think that there is a quality book on just the WE conspiracy in and of itself, the stuff that might be true. So I'm going to share some things in this podcast, in this video podcast, if you will. There isn't really a primary point other than to report on what's happening with Billy Jack and to highlight that this is an era of revelation, to add in some things that you may not have thought. This is an era in time in which some people are snapping. And Billy Jack was known to be a person that was, quote, called by the person that I knew and people online that make videos about Billy Jack that knew him in the locker room, that were other wrestlers. He was known as a loose cannon. A loose cannon. Okay, this was just like the universal word that he was known by. And so, you've heard me talk about solar storms and people losing their shit when the solar storms go off, okay? And we've seen a rise in the solar activity in the last couple of years. And Russia invaded Ukraine on the 24th of February in 2022. Okay, and so we're moving closer with NATO encroaching on Russia's doorstep to World War III. So for those of you that are seeing violence and fights on Twitter and then hearing about the son getting more active and then somebody like going off and shooting his 85-year-old wife, leading people to really wonder what happened. There's really no info about what happened, so I can't tell you what happened, if he's innocent, if he's guilty, if this is the result of him being a loose cannon, or if, you know, he was set up by the WE themselves and they did the hit because they're gangsters, yo. Now, I don't know if that's the case, but again, that is, let's talk about Billy Jack now. So we don't know the story, and I'm not going to go down a route of speculating that somebody else made it look like Billy Jack took out his wife. No, the guy's known to be unstable and to, you know, he's openly talked about drug addiction, and yet I hear him say also in some other videos that he hasn't done drugs, which confuses me. And so I've seen other people comment that he has this inconsistency to his storytelling. But for those that don't know, okay, there's an overview here. Billy Jack has talked about and made claims about things he alleges he did back in the day, okay, the 80s leading into the 90s after he retired, okay. So he claims to have sold drugs in the WE. And he claims to have witnessed or taken part of. It's really unclear. There's like different versions of the story. The boys on the tracks regarding the Arkansas situation in which Bill Clinton was the president, was the governor of Arkansas. And those kids turned up dead that many people believe, well, you know, were potentially witnesses to some sort of a government drug deal. So it's pretty deep. People knew about that stuff for years. It was already part of conspiracy lore. And then one day, Billy Jack decides he's going to start saying that he was a part of this whole thing. And I saw that and went, wow, that's next level. Now, the other stuff is very interesting. WE conspiracy, dead wrestlers, selling drugs, pedophiles behind the scene, real meat and potatoes content. Then he went next level with it, and he's like, yes, and now I'm telling you that I was a part of that whole thing with the Clintons. Now, I'm just telling you, I find the guy to be really interesting, and his story is totally believable about Pat Patterson and the WE. I'm not a person, however, that believes every conspiracy theory, even though I'm a conspiracy theorist. So if you like conspiracy theories and you want a smart guy who is able to dissect fact versus fiction and isn't in the Alex Jones, Donald Trump worshiping or Biden worshiping matrix, you came to the right place. You need to sub now. And you need to go to alexansary.substack.com. Especially also if you're against all the hate that's going on right now in this world. And by the way, I celebrate the idea of the warrior. I believe in working out and pumping iron and being all natural and all that stuff and defending yourself and knowing how to box and how to strike and how to wrestle. But I don't watch modern wrestling. I think that modern wrestling is evil, and I don't watch the UFC. So I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. When I lived in Portland, Oregon, there was one gym and one gym only that I worked at on a regular basis. Although I tried out a few gyms, Giants Gym on Sandy, some of the gyms in downtown Portland, the Friendly House on 23rd, Mount Scott Gym, not during its golden years where I had a great boxing thing going on, but in 2014 when I came back to Portland and was living in my car. No, the one gym that I went to for many, many years is known as Foster Fitness. Okay. And the guy that owns that let me work out there for a number of years when I didn't have the money or when I didn't pay him on time. And I had to be reminded by a friend, remember to pay that guy on time. But the demeanor of that guy that owned the Foster Fitness was not the demeanor of one that I recognized to be a friend of mine. And he seemed to be judgmental of me on a number of levels. And friends of my friend, I would say, looked at me and were like, what are you hanging out with that guy for? That kid's nothing. He hung out with a guy for years that I'll call Mitch. And Mitch could be compared to the character known as Marv in the comic book series, which came out of Milwaukee, Oregon, by the way, Dark Horse Comics, and the movie known as Sin City. I think that the movie takes it a bit far, but the graphic novels are really, really interesting, describing these gangsterism tales of like old Sin City, which is almost a parallel old Portland. Before surveillance society, before cell phones, when men were bigger, when men were more dangerous. I've heard a certain amount of stories from him, not from others, and to hear stories from other Portlanders in the 70s and 80s that lived certain lifestyles, even ex-cops, would be very, very interesting. And I would love, let's just say hypothetically, multiple people are listening now that have stories for me, either about behind the scenes in wrestling and or Portland and or other places. I'm willing to hear you out if you want to email me, soarstorm333@proton.me. Soarstorm333@proton.me, or look at the description down below. So, for years, I talked about the Ultimate Warrior and certain concerns that I had about WE and how I saw it as a satanic organization. And then Billy came on the scene, more vocally in recent years with a lawsuit. And he went on the TV or the podcast Hannibal. I don't know where Hannibal is based or located. But again, we have the rise now of the podcasters and the wrestling podcasters. And people basically telling locker room stories about ravishing Rick Rude, Haku. Been a fan of the Ultimate Warrior for years. And him also exposing the WE. So I remember both watching Ultimate Warrior videos, as well as most all the interviews from Billy Jack, hours and hours and hours, from certain shows that he was on, but mostly Hannibal. Okay? And so looking for basically the common denominator and being somewhat intuitive, using my intuition and going, so what's the big picture here? So there was a point in time in which I took down those videos about the WE, in which I aired certain speculations, and I don't recall all of what I said, but it basically had to do with the theory that the WE basically had an assassination hit team. Okay, and there's lots of theories that I put out there over the years, some of which I took offline. Not out of shame, but out of a sense that yours truly, in many cases, because there are aspects of my psyche that are legit, intuitively. Not on everything. I can't look at you and tell you what you had for breakfast, but I can pick up on certain things, including evil and positivity. Okay? And sometimes I'm duped, but I pick up on certain things when I watch certain videos, and sometimes I have a little bit of accuracy to some of my warnings. Okay? So, also, now that I'm back on the air in Portland, Oregon on cable access TV, so you have another option other than Clyde Lewis of Ground Zero Radio to hear about the New World Order, to hear about those controllers over your society. But I'm nonpartisan. I don't want to jerk off either Biden or Trump, nor his base for my corporate masters, because I have no corporate masters. I have 0 sponsors. So I'm freelance, folks. And so for those of you with an interest in Portland, Oregon affairs and freedom and liberty, you came to the right spot. And so you need to understand that I wanted to show a clip for my show because I feel Billy's pain. When Billy was screaming on Portland Wrestling years ago, Portland, I needed you, Portland, and you weren't there for me. And he's screaming and he's displaying all of this angry emotion regarding this time in which the people of Portland were just not there for Billy Jack for whatever reason. And I feel that pain. I feel the exact same way. There are a lot of flakes in the Portland, Oregon area. And this is a secret that I'm not the only one that believes needs to be blown open. There's a lot of people out there now that do agree with me, where maybe they didn't a few years ago. Now they see the light. So what I'm saying is I picked up, I think, intuitively on Billy Jack going through something for months before this February 8th incident in which his wife was allegedly killed by him, allegedly with a firearm. I do not know the background story. I do not know the potential truth. You are free to email me or leave a comment at the Substack page down below. Again, comments are shut down, not to censor anyone. Nearly all of the comments are positive, folks. But I'm not doing this for your... I'm doing this and exposing various aspects of evil to impress God. And when God is impressed by me, I'll know it. Okay? Because there's certain requests I've made of the Almighty. Certain things that I think will help me reach even more people. Okay? So I want to get God's respect. I want your respect too. But if I'm too distracted by your positive emails, your positive comments, and or your donations, if I put you before God in exposing evil, then I'm compromising myself. You may not understand everything I'm saying to you now and why I've become so hard, if you will, kind of like a warrior in the ring. I've been hit upside the head many times by a lot of people. Now let's talk about Dutch Savage, the guy on the right in the image, with Billy Jack, a younger Billy Jack, on the left. That's the late 70s in Portland. I have avoided the anti-white sentiment and the Islamophobia for years. However, I am disappointed with the way that a lot of people have treated me over the years without getting a chance to know me. Okay? With Dutch Savage, he was using the same physical studio that yours truly was in for over 15 years. That studio in which I predicted the Chinese invasion of the U.S., which is biblical. That same studio in which I screamed against the machine as I sang along with Pink Floyd's Welcome to the Machine. That same studio that I interviewed Alex Jones in. And David Icke, over the phone, that is. And many other people in person, like Joel Skousen, like Michael Rupert, like Clyde Lewis, like many more. And so, one day, Dutch Savage in 2006, because I'm not getting out of the studio fast enough, says to yours truly, you know, you Arabs are all the same. And then I go, what? And then immediately there was an effort to separate us. And one of the guys that was on his side was a guy that pulled a show. I'm a son of an immigrant, son of a white woman, for those of you that don't know. Pulled the show in which we talked about the Afghan refugee in the 80s, that famous National Geographic picture. And the guy who was siding with Dutch Savage pulls the show, citing copyright, when there was nobody from the man, the system, National Geographic, to step in and go, cable access, why are you showing our image? He just did that to be a... And so I can remember Dutch Savage saying, you know, I got a scar here, and a scar here, and a scar here. And again, his show, he was doing the Christian show, he was being a pastor. So here you are, you're saying you're a Christian, you say you believe in Jesus, and just because I'm part ethnic, even though I was raised in a white family, okay, that wasn't the worst, wasn't the best. I appreciate good old Bill Nagel for providing the home that my mother and I lived in, and things could have been a little bit better if he treated me like I was his son. And not just have me do chores, but actually teach me what he taught Phil and Bruce. But he wasn't my dad. Nor was the A-man who took me to steak dinner with Bill, which I'll talk about next, Billy Jack. So the point is, and let's talk about Ultimate Warrior next. You see these guys that act like they're real tough and hard, including Billy, and they sometimes want to get involved in commentary on world affairs, conspiracies. And I applaud the Ultimate Warrior, and I applaud Billy Jack and others. but to not see the former president's role in this also, and to get involved in hating people overseas, like the Ultimate Warrior did when he said, when he became a conservative life coach in 2005 and 6, that you, the American people, you, one life of you, the American, an American, real American, America, F yeah, you are worth like 100,000 Iraqi lives. That's so racist and hateful and stupid. Why would you say that, Ultimate Warrior? Not very warrior-ish. And so for those of you out there that are bodybuilders, weightlifters, powerlifters, that are hearing the sound of my voice, that like this discussion, do you realize that in the society, we do not have very many genuine psychological tough guys that are calling out all the systems? You have Alex Jones and you have wrestlers that scream and shout. Jesse Ventura is one of the closest that we get. Although he will not expose the WE, but he will expose the government's war on cannabis and talk about what he did to get his wife medicine when she was terminal. He broke the law to get his wife medicine. The one and only Jesse Ventura, when his wife was ill. Do you understand? Jesse Ventura has called out algorithms of oppression. I don't agree with Jesse Ventura on a few things and his partnership with RT or Alex Jones, but none of us are perfect. I am not perfect. I have met Alex Jones. I have interviewed Alex Jones. I have sat next to Alex Jones. I have weirded out Alex Jones. I have showed up before Alex Jones had a studio unannounced, literally at Access TV in Austin, Texas, USA. Listen, I may look like a little guy at 5'6". Let me explain something to you. For those of you that are new viewers, boys and girls in the audience here today and now that are hearing the sound of my voice. Okay? I'm no pushover, I'm no punk. And in recent years, I took a break from the internet after years and years of talking. I'm here to tell you something. Not every man has balls of steel. Okay? So if you want to show me a wrestler who pushes 4 plates, 5 plates, that's willing to warn you about the Chinese invasion and Russia, who has the cojones to take the judgment of society and interview psychics that can see what Russia and China are doing as far back as 2007. So tough guys of the audience, you got a war coming in America. And if you're looking for guidance, a man you can trust, it's not Vince McMahon. It's not Biden. It's not Trump. It's certainly not Clyde Lewis. That guy wouldn't know a weight if it hit him in the head. And I don't encourage hitting people in the head with weights. Be there one thing or the other, right? But you need tough men intellectually. And one time, last week, somebody commented, oh, there's Alex filming himself. Now he's filming himself work out. You're not going to say that to a wrestler. You're not going to say that to Freddie Lee. You're not going to say that to the Gracie family. You're going to say that to somebody who you think shouldn't be promoting health and fitness. What I'm telling you is we have this counterfeit paper tough guy society where we have people acting like they're the ultimate tough guys in the ring and then later becoming armchair conspiracy theorists and not even knowing the first thing about the truth about September 11th, 2001. And for those of you that think you know the truth about that, yeah, what do you know about Afghan history when women were free before Russia invaded it? That's what I thought. Nothing. And so for those of you that are old timers, you remember the day in which the Afghans were not treated as the ultimate enemy. There was sympathy for those of you that are old timers. Those of you, including Stallone, who obviously brought us Rambo 3. And if you haven't seen it yet, watch it. Notice how society would say, now that's a tough guy standing up against the Russians. Now America, look at the tough guy with the biceps, with the biceps who took the steroids behind the scene to play the Hollywood tough guy in competition with Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's Stallone and Schwarzenegger. It's the 1980s. Yay! And so what I'm asking those of you to do that have an interest in watching these, I wouldn't say paper tough guy with some of these wrestlers because Billy could fight and others could fight, but it's the idea of not going full on against the system at the top. and still being into partisan politics and being into self-interest. You see, you also have a lot of wrestlers like Goldberg that said that they left and had a break with the WE because of the abuse against women. But yet, some time came and Goldberg was brought back in to the WE. Now, guess who was the one guy who had a video for a while on the internet talking about Goldberg, from Goldberg, not him himself, but a channel that was not owned by the WE. In other words, they couldn't pull it down due to copyright because it wasn't their property. So I mirrored a video from some guy who was at some event that Goldberg was at. You know, big old dude, wrestler. You can Google him online, right? He's talking about leaving the WE because it promotes beating up women, which I talked about for many, many years, 10 years ago, and we'll get into that. Well, a couple years ago when I had my LinkedIn page, it used to give me notifications when certain people and profiles came to my LinkedIn page and looked at it. So I would notice, Angel Sully for years, even though she's a psychopath, it wouldn't help me when I needed it and even give me a good job, kiddo. Yeah, I would see it every now and then. Angel Sully, Portland, Oregon, would glance at my LinkedIn page. I go, oh, that's nice. Lady still thinks about me. But one day, there was the WE Corporation. And it wasn't the first time that either yours truly came on Vince McMahon's radar, either him personally or his staff. Okay. The other time was 2012. And it came at a time in which I was very not used to getting a copyright strike for content. And this came from the top. They filed it from their office at the WE. So here I am. It's literally right around December 21st, 2012. I'm already having anxiety about, I'm not thinking that the world's coming in 2012, but I am living off grid using firewood in a yurt in Costilla County. And I've only been there for a couple weeks. I got a friend named Ryan, and I'm sharing some cannabis and some drinks, some Jaeger with Ryan, staying at his place overnight. And then I get the notification. Your video has been pulled down by the WE Corporation. What was that video? I sat there in studio with Mike Bluehair, and we exposed the WE's promotion of women getting their ass kicked. And you need to face this in the day and age in which Muslims and Indians are getting the rap for beating up the women. I have exposed years ago how the WE played a massive role in promoting women getting beat up by a variety of wrestlers. And this is in the day and age in which women are now being sexually assaulted in pornography. And so, for those of you that are dumber than rocks, that just blame Muslims, that just blame foreigners, that don't know that violent pornography, and I don't care if you like it and you watch it, in a way in which a dog that shat on your floor, you might aggressively shove that dog's nose in the poop. That's what's happening here with me and you. You want to sit there and just point at the Ayatollah, at the Iron Sheik, and this, that, and the other. And again, that's what wrestling did way before 9/11, is fill your mind up with that hatred and fear of those people before they pulled off the 9/11 event. And so, for those of you to not know that Trump is friends with Alex Jones, and Alex Jones is the guy that woke me up. Those of you that are why is he talking about all this stuff? And how does this connecting with Trump and the behind-the-scenes scripting of the very stuff that's in the WD plots? You need to figure this out. Because I figured this out, okay? I figured this out, and you should figure this out. As far as I'm concerned, there is no excuse at this point for you not to figure this out, okay? Are we on the same page? Hello, McFly. Seriously. And I remember years ago, are you pro-lockdown? Are you pro-lockdown now? No, you're not. Okay. So what role did the WE play in promoting the lockdowns? They sat there and brought you all types of ugly First of all, they can't come up with cool characters like during the solar max of 1990. And if you don't know that the solar flares can influence positively pop culture, you haven't paid attention to anything that I've said. Okay? And if you're a new viewer, you might want to get on that, my old content. If you're a bodybuilder, right, and you're looking at me going, this dude looks like he's nothing, I know way more than the dude at Foster Fitness in Portland, Oregon, about how the sun boosts up your testosterone naturally and will encourage you to go on a natural route and develop that knockout punch, which Billy had, which the A-Man had, which Marv in Sin City had, which is a lot like the guy that the A-Man ran around with in the 1980s, who, by the way, was also a extra I'm not using the right word, but he was one of the lower level wrestlers in the 80s that at one point got upset with Macho Man Randy Savage and chased him around the ring. You understand, like a lot of people got involved in wrestling in the 80s when the economy was crap and steroids was the thing and was normal and very easy to get. And the really, really dangerous consequences of that were not as widely known. And like I said, it was much easier to get it from people at the gym because it was being brought up from Mexico and other places. I know zilch and nothing about the potential positive uses of steroids or steroids that may have evolved. If you think that I need to be educated about how the industry has changed, feel free to send me an email at soarstorm333@proton.me. But I did not appreciate bringing up watching the documentary Bigger, Faster, Stronger with the owner of Foster Fitness in Portland, Oregon, and him saying to me, "You're an idiot. You don't know anything." He called me crazy once for talking about wanting to prepare Portland for an event. And he called me a leftist simply because I was anti-war. And yet the leftists in Portland, Oregon thought I was a right-winger for talking about aliens, UFOs, and other things. So, Portland, Oregon in the 1980s was the place for Portland wrestling. And Billy Jack was a star. When the A-Man was talking with him in the late 90s, and I don't know the extent of their friendship, all I can say is Bolo Young is an actor. The A-Man is the real deal. Okay, you've never seen or heard of Bolo Young teaching anybody also other than his son how to actually fight. So I love Bolo Young. I actually just got a large Tiger Claws poster to keep myself motivated as I go back to the gym at the age of 44 and work on getting 2 plates off my chest soon. And I'll do some picks, all natural, little old 5'6" at 180 pounds now, 175. For years I was 155. Put on a little chubby tub, in recent years. Also getting a little bit older, but still am trim enough, even if I've had close friends call me the Pillsbury Doughboy. Okay. But what I'm saying is, yeah, I do believe that those of you that have an interest in fighting in the martial arts and self-defense and spirituality can learn some things from me. And if I had an opportunity to know Billy Jack in the modern day and to hang out with him, there's a lot of things that I would have told him, but I think that I wasn't really meant to get to know him, okay? In 2014, I did message him on Facebook. Did not tell him that I had steak dinner with him in 1998. And like when I met him, he was like, hey, guy, how are you? And for those of you that know Billy, you know that he has this way of being, hey, how are you, guy? And being like very like, but he's actually very much known for being a violent psychopath, loose cannon. So he'll be friendly one moment and the next, like Jake the Snake Roberts sent a recent video, I did not feel safe around Billy. And the A-Man was a dangerous person, but he was not invincible and would say, yeah, that person, wild one. This person over here, definitely. And so you got to understand, those people from that generation dealt with a level of lethality with fighters. And even though there's some dangerous fighters now, no doubt about it, in some cases very dangerous, don't underestimate the fighters of the 70s and 80s. Before the day and age of cell phones and what I would consider to be all this technology that harms the human body. Okay, so basically, as the A-Man would say and point out when we would go to eat in Jansen Beach at that was it the TikTok Lounge restaurant there, right there, and I'd look around and go, see these big old guys from the old days? These guys that are 70 and 80 now, that are 6 feet, 6'5", like they ate different food then. And society was different. Like they were different. Okay, so Billy Jack has basically also been admitting in his more recent years, right, which I think is one's attempt, because he does strike me as a spiritual person who has remorse. He basically says, without getting specific, that he did all types of things back in the day. Quote, the underworld, quote, unquote. He's basically alluding to the fact that he did some not good things that he's not specifying. Okay. And so, yeah. It's not just him. Behind the scenes, there are other wrestlers that got involved in collecting, loan sharking, selling drugs, other things. I don't know the extent of it. And then I was even told by somebody back in the day that even some Portland police officers were known also to be hitmen. Okay? So I'm telling you, folks, you look at cities like Portland, Oregon, you see a bunch of hipsters walking around that aren't even from there. Before Portland became cool, okay, it was a different type of town where the average type of man walking around in the 60s and 70s was not exactly a pushover, okay, wearing lipstick and purple hair. There has been a massive transformation in Portland, Oregon, and I wouldn't so much blame it on Portland, Oregon itself, to be honest with you, but more or less national trends that infected Portland, Oregon, and came from places like California. So yeah, in 1998, we were at the Sizzler, where you order and then you go get yourself some salad and maybe some all-you-can-eat soup. And at that time, the A-Man had been doing some. I don't think that he was very successful, but in the earlier 90s, he was involved in doing some retail and working at clubs. And then he got involved in doing some boxing promotion and even rubbed elbows with Don King in Las Vegas for a while. He was taking planes from Portland, Oregon, PDX, to Las Vegas. He even told me about a number of incidents that he witnessed, riots involving quite a few thugs in Vegas, in which some boxers were present. Also told me about some events at some businesses or clubs or establishments that he was employed at in also the 90s. Again, what's the common theme here, folks? Late 80s, 1990, early 90s, Solar Maximum. Solar Maximum, a time of more wars, gangsterism, violence, and thugs in the club going whoop, whoop, causing a ruckus. So yeah, those of you that are bouncers, security, mental health professionals, cops, judges, doctors, lawyers, you all can learn a great deal from me, okay? My first book is already out, On the Influence of the Sun Over Wars, with a light reference to WrestleMania 1990, Ravishing Rick Rude, that whole thing. So for those of you that are looking at the fight in the street, and then you're feeling your body, and you're going, I'm feeling like working out, I'm feeling like hitting the heavy bag, it wasn't because you watched Chong Li in Bloodsport on Amazon the other night. No, it's the sun, bro. It's the sun. So if that dude at Foster Fitness, or that dude at 24-Hour Fitness, or that dude at Giants, or that dude at some gym in Portland, Oregon that opened up, somebody in California that just came to open up the 100th CrossFit gym, I'm just assuming, right? These people don't know nothing. They know a little bit about health and fitness, but they don't know that when the sun is most active, you as a man, as a woman, are at your strongest. Look at Lisa Lyon, the bodybuilder. Lisa Lyon, the bodybuilder from the 70s and 80s. That was a period in which Burl Payne was organizing the mass meditations around May of 1979, and then yours truly was conceived in the back of a discotheque in Portland, Oregon. No shit. I'm kidding. That I have no idea where I was conceived. But my parents were clearly going to class at PSU, listening to Staying Alive, Staying Alive, Staying Alive. Burl Payne is organizing his mass meditations. My parents look at each other, lock eyes, and they're like, let's make a baby, and then go to war with each other afterwards. Wouldn't that be funny? So my parents are forgiven for their craziness. At this point, I'm going to energetically forgive my parents, but tell you that I believe that it was that powerful sexual discotheque energy. There was also that same energy where everybody was kung fu fighting, and the A-Man, right, knocked out a countless amount of people in his lifetime, but also tell stories about when he bit off more than he can chew, took on a mob of black people in the 1970s around Killingsworth, and is lucky to be alive. Okay. And it takes bravery and strength and determination to take a beating and heal from that beating. Like Bruce Lee was also in the hospital for a number of years through an injury. And like Bruce Lee, the A-Man came out much, much stronger. The A-Man having dealt with real things in his life for many, many years, right? Bolo Yeung didn't live that life. Bolo Yeung is an actor. Bolo Yeung may be able to do the shaky, shaky, shaky with his chest and look like the ultimate fighting machine, but Bolo Yeung is officially, as much as we know, an actor, but an actor that I do believe is lethal. But the A-Man was the real deal, who rubbed elbows with people like Billy Jack and other people, and people that he won't tell me about. And if I had the opportunity to tell his life story, I would. When he's gone, I'll tell everything that I know, but I know nothing incriminating. He was smart on that level. I know nothing incriminating regarding the A-Man, right? He was smart on that level, right? But there was just this idea, though, and understanding that he was a part of a generation, which is the generation that Billy Jack is a part of, in which they came up in old Portland, and the men that they ran around with were not kids, were not children, were not typical Antifa, blue hair, colored fingernails, type of stuff. They came up in the era of the Gypsy Jokers. And hearing stories about the Gypsy Jokers having a run-in with the A-Man and Mar from Sin City, which I'm calling Mitch, which is not his real name. And hearing about Mitch working the door at a bar in Portland, Oregon back in the day that the Gypsy Jokers would hang out in. And there was some sort of a micro beef between those folks at one point, in which there were rumors about the Jokers wanting those folks out of the picture. But knowing the reputation of those folks that ran together, not wanting to go all the way with it in the event that their efforts blew up in their face. Okay. And I've thought a lot about this energy shift from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, in which, in the advent of technology and mass media and the change in diet, we have changed as a society. And the gangsterism isn't gone. The gangsterism is still there, as you can see from movies like Casino. The house always wins, but it's not localized freelance activity anymore. The gangsterism is the government. The gangsterism is the big banks. The gangsterism is Vince McMahon in many ways behind the scenes. We haven't evolved beyond the gangsterism and the dark side. In many ways, it's actually gone very much darker, global, and much more corporate. Okay, so the A-Man met Mitch, the Marv character from Sin City, when he drove from Portland, Oregon in 1973 to Los Angeles, California to work out with the one and only Arnold Schwarzenegger. And he has a story about going and working out with them and maybe being disrespected, leaving the gym, being angry, some people coming by, messing with him, and then him basically dropping all 5 of them, according to him. And then Mitch coming outside going, "Oh my God, we better get you inside before they call the cops." And the rest is history. And Mitch eventually relocated to the Portland, Oregon area from Southern California. Those guys ran around collecting for a man of Greek heritage. Okay. And so again, you're dealing with a day and age before the internet in a place like Portland, Oregon, that was so low-key. Books like Wise Guy have never been written about anything really that took place in the 70s and 80s. You've got books about the 50s. You've got books about the 60s. By the way, I picked this up for $1 recently, right? Somebody may say, that's not worth $1. That's worth 10 cents. That's a paperback. Have you read this book? Have you read this book? This is a good book. Screw Sammy the Bull Gravano and the kissing up that he's doing to Patrick Bet David. I'm not interested. But anyway, let's just reel it back. So when I met Billy, the A-man who had some experience promoting boxing, was at the moment, I'm not trying to be critical of the A-man, but at times he can get interested in somebody's plight, and the next week he's off to something else because he's a workaholic. I'm not trying to be critical. It's just, certain people, certain astrological signs like his, they can display what we would call multiple personalities, for lack of a better word. Here today, gone tomorrow, So they were talking about, and Billy Jack had a folder where it was basically like a folder that showed his pictures from over the years at the WE and also in Japan. And the idea, what he wanted to do was get a fight going with the guy known as Butterbean. Butterbean was some sort of a tough man champion. And I guess Billy Jack has this history and reputation of wanting to get certain fights going with certain people. There was actually a couple of different wrestlers or fighters that he challenged over the years. And again, Billy Jack was a boxer before he was a wrestler. And Dutch Savage, the guy who snapped at me for no reason, who claimed to be a Christian, was someone that was instrumental in motivating Billy Jack to either go to the WE or take something to the next level. Okay? There has been, by the way, many reincarnations of Portland wrestling. There was even maybe like a freak show version of Portland wrestling in the early 2000s, okay, with some real freaks that I saw at AA meetings that were not even from Portland, that were freaks that came up from California. So I don't want to hurt everybody's feelings from California, especially those of you that are decent Californians. I'm actually going to be talking to a Californian from Riverside, California, coming up in maybe a month. I'm thinking about doing a live all-day stream. If you want to come up in the chat room and talk to me on an all-day stream, put April 8th on your calendar. I think that's Monday. And Facebook.com, AlexAnsary.tv, also SolarMaxNews.com. Okay? Now, the owner of Foster Fitness is saying in comment sections online, airing his 2 cents as to what happened with Billy. And I believe that Billy at one point was a patron of his gym and did go to the gym when it was owned by other owners prior to the current owner at Foster Fitness, who, by the way, was in the news recently, in recent years. And there's been some controversy there and some Willamette Week articles that you may or may not be aware of. And I thought, this guy at Foster Fitness may be the perfect person, being that I've met him in the past, to talk about a study in which we gauge the testosterone levels by doing blood tests, and we gauge the athletic performance of the bodybuilders and the powerlifters and the weight trainers in and around the periods in which the sun is more active. And that would be the 2023 period, the 2024 period, more particular, as we approach the peak. And we could see a peak in 2024 and 2025, because previous solar maximums, that's within the context of the GSM, folks. For those that are into looking at the GSM, there still is a solar max. And so you can see a double peak where it peaks in 2024 and it peaks again in 2025 and or even, folks, 2026. You will see more people enrolling at the gym. You will see more people seeking out personal trainers. And my personal belief is you shouldn't need a personal trainer. I think that most of these personal trainers, until I'm proven wrong, are scam artists, including the names of some people that I'm not going to mention, right? But I could think of a better use of money, a better use of $100 or $150, rather than having some other man tell you how to lift, how hard to lift, and whether or not you're doing a good job or not, right? I've learned some decent things from certain folks out there, but in the end, I'm having to take the bull by the horns, and on the side, I am going to be teaching people how to punch, how to step into a punch, how to deflect certain attacks, how to get up from a ground attack. And I've had people bully me online and say boxing and karate and all that stuff is garbage. You're garbage. MMA jiu-jitsu is where it's at. And I'm watching videos now of black teens beating up a white guy fighting somebody else who's doing MMA jiu-jitsu. I said for years that stuff is good if it's just you and somebody else. But if it's a multiple opponent situation, you cannot just be on the ground when there's a mob of people. You have to have the punch as Billy had, as the A-Man had, as others over time had. Wrestling on the ground for 20 minutes on end is not something typical fighters in America's 1950s and 1960s and 1970s and 1980s and 1990s were doing, folks. Okay, this type of fighting that you're seeing right now from the UFC is a modern style of fighting for the modern day and age. It is not the ultimate fighting technique. It is the ultimate fighting for that scenario and that environment, for the octagon. It is not the ultimate technique for the streets. Do you understand me? Okay, there's too many people out there that are narcissists in our society that think they're the ultimate tough guys till they come across somebody else that's going to drop them or tear their face open with some sort of a bull young tiger claw strike or something. And I've heard stories from the A-Man about people that had those abilities in Portland, Oregon in the 70s and 80s that tore open the faces of bodybuilders that were dumb enough because they were big to get out of a Geo Metro and come out someone that had a level of ability that was above and beyond. Okay, so for those of you that are just now waking up to Portland, Oregon, and this Antifa homelessness rent epidemic, right? There's actually a lot of talent and a lot of wrestlers and a lot of fighters and a lot of thinkers and a lot of lovers and a lot of authors and a lot of poets and a lot of spiritual people, including myself, that were straight up conceived in the back of a discotheque in downtown Portland, Oregon. Again, kidding, folks. Kidding. No offense to my horn dog parents, but again, it was the 70s. Cue the music. And at this point, I'm not ashamed. I'm proud to be a part of the Portland, Oregon legacy. To have been born in Portland, Oregon, to have been on the air in Portland, Oregon, and to be well known by people around the world, even though I no longer live in Portland, Oregon. And so, again, in conclusion, wrapping things up, folks, whether you're watching in Portland, Oregon, or you're watching around the world, I've got insight into these matters. Billy Jack was a product of his environment. Billy Jack lived in Portland, Oregon. Billy Jack lived in poverty. Billy Jack had a twisted past. Billy Jack began to spill the beans about that past in order to save his own soul. But because he continued to live in Portland, Oregon, and had behind the scenes possibly an addiction or an unstable nature, it was only a matter of time until the solar cycle kicked back up, where he had enough, possibly, and I'm speculating, where something happened between him and his wife. We don't know. And maybe it was a mercy killing. We don't know the story. But we do know this. Billy Jack was an outspoken critic of Vince McMahon and was involved in a lawsuit against Vince McMahon. And now Billy Jack is no longer a free man. Okay? And the Ultimate Warrior is also no longer with us. I don't know what happened. Right? But I do suggest, if you are spiritual and conscious, and you're becoming aware of these forms of corruption, if you're addicted to wrestling, I just don't support Vince McMahon or the WWE. And I know there's things that are coming out now about Vince, and I've already said what I had to say about Vince years ago. I'm not interested in rekindling these conspiracy theories. I've got, as the saying goes, bigger fish to fry. I've asked my friend in Portland to tell me anything he would like to tell me about Portland, Oregon, to pass on a new level of information to me, if he would ever like to, or just to comment on Portland, Oregon affairs. Because I don't know very many people in Portland, Oregon that are older, that have been around these places, that have worked out with Jesse Ventura as the A-Man did, or where Jesse Ventura worked out at, to see the transformation of Portland, Oregon, to have also had a higher education in Portland, Oregon also, and have been a part of successful businesses and nightclubs, and to have worked out and hung out with various athletes and certain celebrities that came to town, such as Tina Turner, somebody who he had dinner with actually in the early 80s in Old Town Chinatown. Portland, Oregon is a place where certain people have emerged, some famous, some not famous, that have a certain glow, where if they're not necessarily a celebrity, they might as well be because they have that frequency. And the A-Man was one of those characters. And if you compare him to the Bull Young said very little English and had very little personality other than the Bull Young stare with his eyes bugging out. The A-Man, right, could talk for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And at a library like this, full of books on science fiction and the underworld. Okay. So, sometimes when you see me, because I didn't have a dad in my life, talk to you in a harsh way and ask you, are you paying attention? Are you even effing listening? You made your bed, you sleep in it. Those were words that he said to me when I was a heroin addict, when he had to let me go to save himself and develop a new career. It's not his fault. But there's times in which I'm hard on you because he was hard on me. And the truth is, sometimes we do need a loving father figure in our life, or a stern father figure who is going to give us tough love because they love us. Because the A-Man saw what heroin did to people in the 70s and 80s. He saw what that China White did to people. And he punished me in a severe way to shock me, because he already did try to help me multiple times. And I didn't put down the needle. Until one day he said, and it was almost a threat, you lying to me? Because if you're lying to me, and it was basically a declaration, you're getting close to getting dropped by me right now. You lie to me, boy, you make me angry. And so for reasons that had to happen, perhaps, I had to move on from idolizing him and the stories that he told and the life that he and others lived. And I had to go through the fire and literally crawl my way through my blood, sweat, and tears to cable access in Portland, Oregon, off the corner of 2766 Northeast MLK. Actually, very close to the former Gypsy Joker Biker Club. Just a little side Portland factoid. And the rest of my life is history. In the same way that wrestlers are directed to join a wrestling school and they become this thing and the rest of their life, as it was for me. Not a lot of people go on that path, and not a lot of people that get involved in the truth movement promote bodybuilding, self-defense, discussing the underworld and the lessons about the underworld that we can learn about our day and age. As I said, the gangsterism hasn't gone away. Now it's cops, it's mercenaries, it's Blackwater, it's big banks, it's corporations. The game is still there. The skimming is still there, but it's corporate. I would like to end this hour with a prayer for Billy Jack, because he's now on his way to the joint unless he is going to be found innocent. Second, I didn't have a dad in my life, and I do have upset emotions that I and the A-Man and my mother and my dad, my Uncle Bruce, that we all went separate ways. It hurts. But if I didn't have the A-Man in my life to teach me how to throw a punch when Isaac Pankey, you can look Isaac Pankey up in Portland, Oregon, see that face, that black bully that harassed me as a child, Pankey, Isaac Pankey. If it wasn't for the A-Man, I don't know if I would have developed a certain level of masculinity. I don't know what my life would have ended up like if there wasn't an A-Man in my life at all. Just as E said to me years ago when I cried when she left me, you know what, Alex? Would you have liked it if I was never in your life at all? I'm glad E at least was in my life, and the same thing for the A-Man. So I pray for him, because he's living in a city that is terrifying people that have lived there their whole life, including people that are in power in Portland, Oregon. There is an evil in Portland, Oregon that is very, very vicious. The second thing is, in this era of anti-white sentiment, I want you to pray for my mother, despite the things that have happened. When I see these videos emerging on Twitter, and we're going to end this before 1 hour, I'm deeply, deeply concerned for her safety, even if my heart still hurts about the past and the present, and I want my mom to be safe. And I thank my mom for bringing people like the Amen in my life.